Let's talk about hell. Here is a sort of a conceptual drawing of hell. From this point, we have now left any kind of Christian biblical scripture. In fact, we've left the Catholic Church entirely. We are now living in Dante's little mind. Okay? So let's all be clear about that. Is this what hell is really like? I don't know. Go and let us know. See where it's the same, see where it's different. That'd be interesting. Anyway, Dante's Inferno, Dante's hell looks like this. We live at the top. See the green grass at the very top? That's you. See, you're up here having a picnic with your Subway up here. All right, and then underneath is hell. Now, hell is organized by sins, where the least sins are at the top and the worst sins are at the bottom. At the bottom of hell, as you see, it looks like a big funnel, which makes sense because you think of the sins. Like the worst sinners, there's probably fewer of them. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so at the bottom of hell, you find Satan. Now, the opposite of dark is light. So the higher up you go into heaven, the closer to God you get, the more bright everything is, because God is light. So the further away it gets darker. Therefore, Satan lives in almost complete darkness. And also, if you know your science class, the further away from light you get, the colder it gets. And so all your fire of hell is at the top. But the further you go down, it actually starts to turn into ice. So the bottom of hell is not a fiery place, but a dark, cold, icy place. So Satan is literally chilling down at the bottom. I just made that up just now. Anyway, so now I want you guys to tell me, if you were to rank the sins from least to worst, what would be the worst sins down here at the bottom? Murder, killing babies. What else? Rape? Which one's worse, rape or murder? So you already have a little battle there. There's nothing worse than murder or rape? There's nothing worse?
Murder and rape together.
Murder and rape together. Man, now you're stacking abilities. Killing mass murder. Is there anything worse than killing another human?
Yes.
Yeah. Treachery. What's that? Betrayal. In fact, treachery and betrayal are actually the worst sins of all, according to Dante. In fact, that's where Satan is. Let's take this next slide. This shows sort of a concept of hell. Here's the gate of hell. There's a river when you get there. This is hell's great distribution center. So when you go into the gate, you are then distributed, like depending on your sins, they will tell you which part of hell you're going to be sent to. It's distribution. And you get on the little boats and the river will take you to drop you off where you're supposed to be at. As you get further down into this upper hell, you'll find this city. I mean, this place is huge. You have no idea. Hell is massive. It's got to hold a lot of people. So there's a city about down midway or so, and it's got walls, looks like a castle. And on the walls, it's being guarded by Kraken, which is Medusa times, 100. So there's probably a lot of statues right in front of that city gate right there. Okay. As you get further, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, if you're at the top, you did less things.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yes.
But what's lustful? So like, that's a less sin.
Lust? Right. It's not as bad as murder. So anyway, once you get into the city of hell, which is a pretty hot place, like Arizona, 120 degrees. All right, you get there. The further you go into this forest. You'll find a dark forest. This is the trees of suicide. We'll talk about that later. In fact, you can't. The branches go up, but there's no light, so it's kind of like a tree that just grows, and then you don't see the top of it. It goes in the dark abyss above. And there's this river of blood, so no more water. Now everything's bloody. And in fact, there's a place where there's boiling blood. It gets real hot. And then there's this waterfall of blood, and you can jump down it and come down to this other area. This is a separate area. Here it starts to get really dark and scary. It's really the bad, really worse sins in the lower hell. And then you got Satan down the bottom. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more specifically about the sins that are going on here. This slide shows the list of sins in order according to Dante. So at the very top, you have the unbaptized people and the pagans. These are basically according to divine law and justice. You cannot enter paradise without baptism. So it doesn't matter how good of a person you are, without entering that sacred thing, you will never enter paradise. So these people, maybe they're ignorant, just didn't know, maybe they just didn't get around to it, had to work, pay bills, who knows. Those people are there. In fact, when Dante gets to the first circle of hell, he finds himself weeping, not because he's so scared, but because he hears the crying of children and women and babies. Because of divine justice, without baptism, they cannot enter paradise. Which is why you see Catholics baptizing babies. Not because they read Dante's Inferno. That's just a Catholic thing, yeah. So in the game, the unbaptized babies try to kill... that's crazy, right?
It's really messed up.
All right, so they really tried to base it on the book. Well, this is what happens in the book, okay? So it's kind of sad, but I think it's a lesson to all of Dante's that you have to take a stand somewhere. Okay. So then, after that, you have the Lustful, which some of you might end up there someday. Okay. Everybody has desire, but lust takes it to that next step. But what's worse than lust is gluttony, or people who overindulge, addictions, things like that. Why is that worse than lust? Because, look, you got to look at it, human nature. Everyone can feel lust, but they can control it. Gluttony is that next step where you don't control it. You just let it go, and you just indulge in everything. Sleep, drugs, whatever. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There you go. All right. So then what's worse than that? Fourth circle. Those people who spend a lot of money on stuff they don't need. The hoarders and the wasters. They're there. I know in the game there's like a double-headed guy, right? They're fighting each other. Okay. And then in the fifth circle, these are the angry people. People filled with rage and wrath. They put holes in the wall. You're just out of control. Rage. And guess what? They get to hang out with the slothful and lazy people. So it's funny when you put them in the same room together. Because the lazy people don't do nothing, and the wrathful people are so angry, they beat up all the lazy people. And the lazy people don't do anything about it. Because they're too lazy. They'd rather just get beat up. So that's kind of a lot of fun watching that. And then the sixth circle are the heretics. These are those who are basically knowingly taking a stand against God. See, the first circle, maybe they were just fortunate, or maybe they're ignorant. But the heretics they know. They know there's a God, and they're like against God. They willingly say, no. Will you go to church? No. The heretics, blasphemers. Seventh circle is for the violent. And you'll find that in the seventh circle, we divide it then into 3 subdivisions. Hey guys, the violence department is huge in hell. It's so huge, they had to split it up into 3 subgroups, okay? So, the first one is those who are violent against property and inanimate objects. The taggers, yep, that's the taggers go there. Then there is the forest, the tree of suicide. Why? Because that's violence against oneself. Okay, so I guess you got the taggers, and then the emos are next. That's what he said. Okay, so what's worse than the suicide? Well, obviously, violence against, people. That would be God. You realize, according to Dante, when you kill a person, it's violence against God, not the person, because God created everyone, right? So you are actually it's a violent act against God himself when you kill someone else. That's how Dante views it. So God, nature, and or art. So if you deface a painting, draw a mustache on the Mona Lisa, you're going to hell. And it's not going to be good. You're going down in one of the worst circles down there. There's some cool creatures down there too. They're just there to torment you. The tree of suicide, the suicides. I know I mentioned it already. I just, people like that place for some reason. Basically, you commit suicide, you become a tree, but your branches, when they break, it's bloody, like you feel it, it's painful. You can't move, but you can talk and you can cry. And so that way, anytime someone comes by and breaks a branch, you can tell them your soul sob story of why you killed yourself. You get to tell everyone your sad story. That's your gift in hell. And there's little demons that run around and break branches on purpose. You'll see. All right. And then down on the 8th circle, these are some of the worst offenders. These are the fraud. Remember who was worse in Canterbury Tales? The pardoner, right? The people who are leading others astray. It's worse than murder. Why? Because there's all these people suffering in hell, and it's all your fault. That's why it's worse than murder. You've basically condemned people's souls because of your lies.
It is worse than murder.
And so, it's right under murder. And it's worse than murder because it's spiritual murder, right?
Yeah.
So, these are your false prophets, your sorcerers, your black magic, people selling fake spiritual goods, your hypocrites, and the thieves. Corrupt politicians are down there too. I think he just threw them down there, in the mix. Okay, and then finally, the last circle, the 9th, is where Satan lives. We talk about betrayal, treachery is the worst sin. Why? Because that's Satan's sin. Satan was the brightest of all angels, and he betrayed God. He's a traitor. And so all traitors get to hang out with Satan. And in Satan's left hand, he has Judas Iscariot, who betrayed the Christ. And in his other hand, he has Brutus, who betrayed Julius Caesar. And Satan chews on both of their heads down there. Okay, so got about a minute or two here. We have Purgatory, which is a mountain that you have to ascend, opposite of hell. There's a ring of fire on Terrace 7. Unless you're pure of heart, you cannot pass through that wall of fire. That's your security checkpoint, if you will. Then there's a paradise, a little Garden of Eden at the top. There's a great part where Dante cannot go any higher. He can't get into heaven. And Virgil can't take him anymore because only the divine can be in God's presence. And so they call God for help. And so Beatrice comes out from heaven and takes Dante out of hell and into paradise. Then we go into heaven, and you have the planets. You have the sphere of fixed stars, all the stars you see in the sky. If you can somehow ever get past them, which we can't through human means, only divine intervention can take you past the stars. You then enter God's kingdom with the angels and all of that. And he describes all the rings of heaven with equal passion as he does hell. And so as nightmarish as hell is, you find paradise to be exquisite and incredibly awesome.